Well, thank you so much for a wonderful introduction, Marco. And indeed, I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence today, but not from the perspective that you may be thinking about. So not from a technical perspective, but from the human perspective. And we're going to figure out how to win in this world of work. So the first thing I want you to do is put your hand up in the air. If you ever wake up in the morning and you think, my God, the world is spinning faster than ever before. Yeah, okay. It's actually spinning the same, but it feels that it goes faster and faster because we're in this fourth industrial revolution, right? We're in this revolutionary time where technology is eating everything. It's changing everything that we do. It's changing the world of work. It's changing our experience as consumers in the market. And we're seeing these changes come to life. We're seeing consumer expectations increasing, going through the roof. We're seeing people spending more time online and being more digital than ever before. And interestingly, there's a lot of technology change that's happening today. So you have 5G on your mobile phones. You have artificial intelligence also on your mobile phones. But you have other things as well. So in the office, you have the Internet of Things and you have sensors everywhere. All these technologies, when you combine them together, means the pace of change is super, super fast. And this is what I'm going to talk about. You probably remember, and there's a few of you I can see by your age, the first computer, so Web 1. Yeah, when that first came out. And we all remember the modem noise when you picked up the phone and it squeaks at you. Okay, that was the first thing that happened. And when that happened, everybody was scared, right? They said, oh, the internet is going to change everything and take away the jobs. Well, the opposite happened. For every job that was destroyed, 2.6 new jobs were created. And GDP grew 10% because of the internet. And now we're in Web 3, where we're seeing physical space and virtual space converge and come together. We're going to see the same thing. We're going to see massive opportunities in business, massive opportunity for you as individuals. Now, who remembers this website in 1997? Yeah. eBay. What a wonderful website, everybody said. Everybody said this is a fantastic website. And it's true, in 1997 it was a fantastic website. But today, doesn't cut it. Today, everything is mobile first. Everybody is walking around the streets, and this is a photo from China. They walk down the street staring at their mobile phone, but in this lane here, you're safe, because it's only for people who stare at the floor. So that reduces people getting run over by cars and those things. So they're advanced on technology, maybe. But, you know, I travel through airports, and so do you. And I suppose you travel through bus stations as well. And it's normal to see people sitting there on their mobile phone, right? Look closely. Because they also sit there sometimes looking at their mobile phone and not their child. We are digital first. And, you know, you blink your eye, and you open it, and everything has changed. The world has changed. The pace of change is going fast. And I know it's complex. I know it's difficult. I know not everybody in the room can know everything about every single technology that's going, but there is a solution. Now, unfortunately, things are getting difficult. If we look at this graph here, we see that the average lifespan of a corporate company, so one from the S&P 500, so US top 500 companies, is reducing, it's shrinking, and the human lifespan is increasing, which is great for us in the room because we're humans, obviously, but bad for our companies because the world of work is difficult. The pace of change is going so fast that we need to change our companies as well as ourselves. But there is good news. What we can do in order to stay successful is turn to company culture and work culture. Now, I don't know if anybody has this can in their house, a can of WD-40, yeah, most of you, right? Fantastic product. WD stands for water displacement, which is oil, and 40 stands for attempt number 40. So they only made this can of oil on their 40th attempt. That tells you something about resilience. But anyway, Gary Ridge was the CEO and chairman of the company, good friend of mine, and he told me, Dan, you know, I look at two things in business. I look at our strategy, and I look at the culture and the will of the people. And I can have a strategy that's 100 out of 100, but if I have a low will of the people, say 10 out of 100, I multiply the two together, and I get a quite rubbish score. If I have a medium strategy, like 50 out of 100, but I have a high will of the people, 100 out of 100, multiply 50 by 100 and you have 25,000. You have great results. And that's how he built the company, by focusing on the people. So the question really is, culture is king. That is the way to be successful in business. And most innovative businesses I know are trying to improve their company culture, not just thinking about technology. Now, there's a great company that you probably all know called WeWork. Now, I say great because the history is interesting, perhaps. They had a very bad culture. And as you know, they went bankrupt. They filed for bankruptcy. And it was because their founder, Adam Newman, was running a cult. He was the head of the company, telling everybody what to do, how to do, and when to do. He was walking around the office saying, "You're fired, you're fired, you're fired." And that created fear inside the company. So the culture was poor. And surprise, surprise, they fell away. Now they're starting again in a new guise. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can have great cultures. And I like to think as culture is the solution to this pace of change that we're facing, like an antidote, a pill that you can take, right? And at the end of the day, if you think about a pill that you can take, an antidote, what does it do? It gets to the root of the problem, right? It gets to the heart of the problem. And the reality is, your culture is the root of your company. At the end of the day, how your people behave, act, and work with one another and your clients is because of the culture inside your walls. So, I've got a question for you, which is, what do you think the normal, average, highest cost line in a business is? Yeah, I heard it over here. Anyone on this side? Yeah, your people cost. So Deloitte has made the study, and you see that 60% of cost is typically your people. So what is the consequence of not focusing on your people? You know, we had the great question to Adam about, you know, what happens when I don't have a massive project or a massive budget? Yeah, more the point is the consequence of not investing in that. We also had the question to Carolina, what happens when you invest in skills of your people and they leave the company? And the question more is, what if you don't invest in that? And that's the point. You have to invest in culture. And I've done a lot of research on this, and I'm going to share with you 3 pillars from all of my work over the last 10 years on this topic. And what I want to share with you first is about growth mindset. So we're going to take 3 pills, 3 antidotes, we're going to learn them, and we're going to see how to apply them. And the first, as I say, is growth mindset, because artificial intelligence is not plug and play. You don't just take it from the shelf and it works. You need to test, you need to learn, you need to try new things, and you're going to fail a lot of the time. So what is a growth mindset? Growth mindset is something that Dr. Carol Dweck in the United States came up with. And basically she says there's 2 types of people and 2 types of company. Those with a growth mindset and those with a fixed mindset. And the ones who have a fixed mindset are people who think, I can't learn anything. They spend their time in the office protecting their backs. When something goes wrong, they point the finger and blame someone else. But those who have a growth mindset think that they can learn new skills, that they can try new things, they can take risks, they can be innovative. And if they fail, it's an opportunity to learn. So that's the first pill, have a growth mindset. And it works wonderfully in a little company called IKEA around the world. IKEA was a family company selling furniture. And their CEO said, you know, I really want a company where people learn, where they're inspired, where they can try things and collaborate with one another. So they built their company from a little place in Scandinavia all around the world now because of that mindset. And there's an even bigger company called Microsoft that you've probably heard of. And they too have this idea of a growth mindset. Now, interesting story, a new CEO came into Microsoft 10 years ago called Satya Nadella, and he said, I want to move from a company which is a company full of know-it-alls, so people who know everything, to a company who learn everything and become learn-it-alls. And it's interesting because what's happened in the last 10 years in Microsoft is we've seen 1,000% increase in share price and shareholder value. Whereas the previous CEO, who was having a culture of everybody knowing everything, destroyed shareholder value 36%. Of course, it's not only because of that. There's a lot of other headwinds happening, but I think it's important to reflect. And the third and final example I want to give you is Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Has anybody eaten that ice cream? Yeah, okay. So Their headquarters is in Vermont in the United States. And as you walk into their office, they have what they call their flavor graveyard. So they have a physical graveyard with tombstones of the flavors of ice cream that they tried to sell and they failed with. They like failure because they know they need to try things to be successful in the future. Okay? So something physical in their office. You don't believe me, do you? Here it is. So it's real, it's true. This is what it looks like. When you walk in, you see the reminder, actually, I can take risk here. I have a growth mindset, and so does the company. So that's the first pill. And really, I'd ask you, what does your flavor graveyard look like? So this is your first piece of homework. Reflect upon your failures in life, in work, and see how you can do better next time. What does it look like for you? What does it look like for your company? And I'm sure many of your failures, like mine, are to do with technology, right? That would be fair, because that's the world we live in. So that's the second pill, adopting technology in partnership. So not seeing technology as a threat, but by seeing technology as a partner to help you do more and go further in business. And one of the big misconceptions I see is I see that companies say that I have all this technology, therefore I am digital, or we are digital. And that's not true. You only become digital when you change your culture, when you start thinking in the modern way, when you have flat organization structures, when you remove bureaucracy and hierarchy from the company, when you test and learn new things, when you have different skills in your organization. So for me, don't think you're digital because you have artificial intelligence. Adopt artificial intelligence and a cultural transformation, and then you become digital. And probably a company you also know, and if anybody has one, come and chat to me, but there's a company called Ferrari in Italy, and I work with them and I go there to help them do one thing, which is change the Ferrari from a petrol engine to an electric engine. So soon there are going to be electric Ferraris. Only electric Ferraris. Petrol is going. But that requires a massive, massive change in mentality in the company, because everybody knows a Ferrari is loud, smells like petrol, gasoline, and makes, like I say, a lot of noise. And how do you replicate that for electric engines? And that's their challenge. And what they've figured out is actually they need to partner with all the other companies you see here, because they don't have the answers. They need to combine their forces and try new things. So thinking about how can you go further, but in partnership with other people. And it's very similar to artificial intelligence. How can that get you going further in the world of work? And I love it because Carolina brought the example of the calculators for maths. And for me, artificial intelligence is just like the calculator. We can all use it, but we have to know the fundamental things. A calculator is no good if we don't know the numbers, or we don't know how to interpret the results. And that's the same with artificial intelligence. We still have to know the things that we need to know about our business. We need to use the machine in the right way, and then we need to analyze the results from the machine and take action. So the first step and the last step are human steps. The machine is only doing something in the middle. Alone, it can't do the whole thing, and humans alone can't do the same in terms of quality, speed, execution. So it's a partnership that's happening. And the interesting thing for me is we're probably in the peak of inflated expectations on the Gartner hype cycle. So everybody has massive expectations for artificial intelligence. And now we're saying, oof, I don't know if this is going to be so good. I was promised that we would reduce headcount. I was promised that we would make $1 million. It didn't come true. Well, this is normal with new technology, right? You go up, everyone gets excited, everyone gets depressed, and then we stabilize. And I think we'll come into that stabilization in the future, which is good news for everyone in the room, because there's massive interest in artificial intelligence, but very few are using it appropriately and getting the benefits. So if you start today, you'll be one of the first in the world. So it's not too late. You should start today if you haven't already, and there's a lot of opportunity there. And of course, the workforce is absolutely going to change, right? So you're going to have super skilled people, less skilled people, operational people, technical people, and every single job can change. but it's not necessarily going to remove the jobs like the internet was supposed to do. It's going to change the tasks within the job. So again, if we're looking for a partnership where we can be human and machine, working together, that's what we have to be thinking about. We are not fighting against each other. We should be joining our forces. So think about artificial intelligence as something that can push you further rather than replace you. And I just want you to do one thing. Most of you have it in your hands already because we're addicted to them, but can you take out your phone? Just have a look at it. Just stare at it for a second. They're kind of beautiful, no? How many jobs does this phone do that you used to do manually? A lot. We are not really afraid of these things. We love these things. We're addicted to it. We already saw that, the baby on the floor. We love our phones. And the reality is, when we use them in the right way, they help us. And that's what I want you to think about. So the second homework for you is to think, emerging technology, artificial intelligence, where can you use it to automate parts of your process? Where can you use it to augment difficult things in the workplace? And where can you use it to elevate so your employees can spend more time on creativity? That's the second idea. And then we move to the third pill and the final tablet that you have to take. And it's really about questioning everything and challenging your assumptions. And this is so important because we're at a time where AI can help us do so many things. It can get us more customers. It can make us work faster. It can get us better outcomes and productivity. It can do many things, but we have to be proactive in asking it to do those things. And we need to challenge our assumptions because at the end of the day, this is the worst management advice I have ever seen in my life. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Wrong. If it ain't broke, go and break it so you can fix it. You have to change because if not, remember the graph at the start. The lifespan is contracting for companies. So we need to push the boundaries. We need to question everything. Now, who's the genius in the room? I want to find out. Does anybody know this company? The people who read my book know the answer. Any guesses? Yeah, I heard it over here, I think. Fisher-Price, not quite, but Lego is the correct answer. Yeah. You got it. Okay, a few people got it here, so we've got a few geniuses. This is Lego, and in the 1930s, these were their toys when they first became a company. And their first toy was the wooden duck, and I would love to have this duck in my office, but I can't afford it. It's a collector's item, so I've got a Lego replica of it. And it reminds me of the time I spent in Denmark, in Billund, in their offices. And they have this sign in their workshops, which I can't read because it's in Danish, but it means only the best is good enough. And that's their culture. That's their motto. And it's interesting because in the 1930s, the company was a father and a son. And one day, the son ran over to the father and said, "Dad, you're going to be so proud of me. I've saved us 30% of our money." And the father said, "Huh? How did you do that?" And the son said, "Well, you know the ducks? Instead of putting 3 coats of paint and varnish, I only put 2. And the father got super angry. He said, "Son, go to the train station, pick them up again, repaint them and ship them, because only the best is good enough." So Lego went through the 1930s to the 2000 period thinking only the best is good enough. And then they lost their way. They nearly went bankrupt. They outsourced all their production to China. They stopped speaking to customers, and they were about to do a financial disaster. So they changed their CEO. They brought in a guy called Jürgen Knudstrup, and he said, "Okay, let's bring it back to our culture." He brought production back in-house. He started talking to the children who were the customers, and if you can talk to a child, you can talk to anyone. So they started doing innovative things in that respect. They started putting out a website called Lego Ideas, where customers could put their ideas on, and then they would take the feedback and change the company. And he stabilized the company. So he brought them from bankruptcy to stabilization. And when they were celebrating a year of profit, he told his executive team, "Congratulations, now stop congratulating. Think, if we are not in the building block business, the toy block business, and Meccano mega blocks are not our competitors, what business are we really in?" And he changed the face of Lego. He said, we're now in the entertainment business. We're not in the building block business. I challenge that assumption. I say we're in the entertainment business. So therefore, we're competing with PlayStation. We're competing with Real Madrid because you're going to buy tickets to a match instead. What else is a child going to buy if they don't buy Lego? So he created movies, he created sneakers, he created new intellectual property, he made franchises, he built theme parks, and Lego, of course, has become a wonderful, wonderful company during his tenure. So really, the best time to challenge your assumptions is not when you're in crisis mode, it's when you're winning, okay? So you need to do it now. That's the time to do it. Lego did it then, and your third piece of homework is to fill in the blanks here. I want you to go home today and say, you know what, in reality, we're not in this business, we're really in this business. And that will give you a clue to the future. So think about that, and please take away, if you take nothing else away from this, that culture is not some sort of fancy word. It is the core of your business. This is the way you're going to be successful. And it's the survival plan for this hyper change that we're facing. So as much as we would like to slow down the pace of change, as much as we would like to stop time, we can't do it. The world's going to keep spinning. So please think. Triumphing in the world of AI is not about technology. Everybody has it. Everybody has it on their mobile phones. It's 20 euros a month for ChatGPT Premium. It's cheap. What's not cheap and what's more difficult is the culture and the way and the will of your people. So please think about that. And I encourage you all to scan this QR code as a final gift from me, because I want you to take a test to see how good you are on those 3 pills. And what I'll do is I'll look at the results and I'll give you my feedback as well. So I hope you enjoy that, and thank you very much for your time. Thank you, my cheerleader.
Otro aplauso para Dan, por favor. ¿Qué tal charlas? Dios mío. ¿En qué negocio estamos? Más de uno se ha preguntado eso, ¿no? Yo al menos.
De verdad.
Qué bárbaro. Estoy aprendiendo mucho y agradezco a la organización de haberme invitado. Un placer, verdaderamente. Dan, vamos con las preguntas. A ver, ¿cómo van esas preguntas? Primera pregunta dice, ¿cómo detectamos? Respondes, you're going to use English,
no,
Spanish, Spanish. Vives en Madrid, ¿verdad? ¿No?
Sí.
¿Cuánto tiempo?
7 años.
Ya está, ya está. ¿Cómo detectamos una cultura de miedo? Y si hacemos... A ver, no me lo muevan, por favor. Va ganando la 3. ¿Cómo promover una mentalidad de crecimiento en mi equipo?
Yeah. I think, you know, so how do you create a growth mindset in your team is the same as how you do anything with culture in your team, which is you have to lead by example. You have to be the one who does a change, okay? I don't care that your company has 3 words on a wall. I don't care. I like to see it in the office, but that's not the important. The important is you're the role model. You lead by example. So if you want people to have a growth mindset, you have to start learning yourself. You have to share publicly your failures. You have to say, look what I did and the results I got. You have to start reading or looking on YouTube for new technology. You have to start taking AI and using it day in, day out. So the point is, role model the behaviors you want to see. And if that's growth mindset, start role modeling that. And you can do super small things as well. So you don't need a cultural transformation that's expensive and costly. You can do things today. And as individuals, if everybody in this room does something different today, we can make a big change. So a final piece of homework, put your hand if you are right-handed. Okay, and put your hand if you are left-handed. Okay, so do you brush your teeth? Yeah? Okay. So if you brush your teeth, those with the right hand tonight, use your left, and those with the left, use your right. And it's going to feel weird, but you're going to build a growth mindset because you're going to try something new. Simple. ¿Qué más?
Entonces, segunda pregunta, ¿cuál es un primer paso sencillo para introducir la IA en nuestras empresas?
I think the best and the starting step I always advise people is to start using it yourself as an individual. Okay, most companies are falling into the trap of we need governance, we need control, we need to do a big pilot, we need to do grand things. But for most, the best is when you use it yourself and when you become productive yourself. So when you can figure out, actually, I'm in Lima and I need a plan for this afternoon, can you help me? And you type it and you figure out it's useful, then you start to get comfortable. And you change your mentality because you say, it's a friend, not an enemy. And I think the mindset is a good first step.
¿Cómo detectamos una cultura de miedo? Y si hacemos, ¿cómo hacemos para impulsar el cambio? ¿Por dónde empezar?
Probably a lot of cultures like this, especially hierarchical ones, especially ones where people have been in the same position for a long time. People, they could have some fear in their environment. And typically what you can notice is you notice people not speaking up. So you notice people being silent, people not willing to take risks, so they don't raise their ideas. And you also notice that in the meetings, everybody says yes, and then you go outside of the room and people comment in the corridor, and they do things behind your back. So that would say, you know what, we have a culture of fear. The question is, again, how do you change that? And that's something you have to change slowly, step by step. But I think one of the best ways, and you can all do this, is whenever you start a meeting, ask the most junior person in the room to speak first. Because what normally happens is, say you have a business challenge. How do I sell 10 more pieces of paper? The most senior person says, here's the answer. And everybody says, okay, fine, and off you go. But if you let the junior person go first, you have the idea to speak up, share new ideas, different perspectives, and it makes it more inclusive for everyone. So again, lead by example, think about, am I making this inclusive for everyone? I will try that.
Very nice. Están preguntando para poder el QR final, por favor, si pueden ayudar. ¿No? ¿Está bien, no? Pregunté bien, ¿no?
There you are. Well, I should come out the way.
Y regresando a las preguntas, porque claro, es uno u otro. Yo tengo una pregunta. ¿Es imprescindible invertir en la cultura? ¿En todo momento es buen momento para empezar?
I think the best time to start is now if you're not investing in culture, and definitely it's worth it. I've lived the cultural transformation in Banco Santander, and like you say, that's over 200,000 people. And I've seen that it changes people's lives. I've seen that it leads to happier employees, more engaged employees, people working in the same direction as one another, pushing the company further and faster. And if I think of that experience, imagine in 2014, Santander was a bricks and mortar bank. So it was a bank on the high street. It was physical. It was selling boring products to customers with hundreds of pages of terms and conditions. It was deliberately complex, and it was making a lot of money. But the fintechs came in. So, you know, these companies like Revolut, these companies like Wise, these companies like Monzo, they came into the market and they said, we're going to change the way people do banking. So we had to change ourselves. So we digitalized the entire business over the last 10 years. And today, the bank is extremely successful as a digital bank, but that was only because we changed the culture, we changed the mindset. And it was a long journey and a long process. It started by removing 50% of the executives overnight, changing completely the leadership team. Then it was, let's put some words on the wall and just start talking about them. And then it was, let's change processes in the company. So we only hire people who are aligned with the mission. And we promote people who really live the culture. So you change the processes. And after you do all of those stages, it becomes a little bit more organic. So the company has truly changed. But it's so worth it. If you do the effort there, you will be successful. And there's no right or wrong in culture. You can have a very warm and cuddly culture, or you can have a very hard culture. It doesn't matter. You choose. But you have to be consistent.
Un fuerte aplauso para Dan,
Gracias,
por favor.
Marco.
Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias.